So this is the solutions to the starter questions for today, focusing in on the factorising skill. This is a bit of revision for you. You've done this since you started fourth year, but also it was a topic that was covered in third year. So this is us revisiting it, and we're revisiting it because the next part of our quadratic functions work relies on you being able to use this skill. So a little reminder at the side here about the different types of factorising. There is the common factor, and you should always check for common factor first. The other two types, difference of two squares and trinomial, it's about recognising what those are. Trinomial is the one where you've got the three terms. The word difference means you're looking at a takeaway. Two squares is talking about the fact that you've got two terms in it, and both these terms are squared. And we'll have a look at when we can recognise these types. So you should always check for common factors. So this first expression here, 4x squared minus 20xy, hoping that you could see that this was common factor type, and the highest common factor that you can pick out there, you look at the numbers first with the 4 and the 20, so you've got a factor of 4. There's also a common term of x there, so highest common factor outside the bracket you would have 4x. Remember that what goes inside the bracket needs to multiply together to give you that, so you need another x there, 4x times x to make 4x squared. Then we'll be having a minus sign, and 4x times you need a 5 to make you have 20. You've already got the x in the second term, so it would just be the y, and that would be it, factorising, nothing else that we could do with that. So that would be using common factor as your type of factorising there. So hopefully you got that correct. This next one is the one where we've got three terms going on, which means it's a trinomial, and hopefully you've been able to look back and see the method that we used for this was the little table that you would generate, where you know that this is going to go into two brackets, and in these brackets, to make your x squared, you're going to have an x and an x, but it's the terms that go with that you need to be able to work out. So the product, remember, is where you look at this last number, so, and you take account of the sign. We need the product to be 24, so I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me 24, but there are quite a few there. There's 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. So it could be any of those, but what you then need to check for is your middle term, what the sum needs to be, and that's whatever's in front of the x. So in this particular instance, I need the sum to be 11. So hopefully you could see that the two numbers that make that work are 3 times 8, they make 24, and when I add 3 and 8, I would get 11. So that tells me what needs to go inside my bracket is x plus 3 and x plus 8. So that's your trinomial. And doing that little table will help you if you've forgotten it. And here's another trinomial as well. You've got another one where you've got three terms, an x squared, an x, and a number. So it's going to be this little table with where you're going to look at the last term and so on. So we know it's going to go into two brackets. We're going to have an x and an x. This time we need to be looking at the fact that your product needs to be matching this last term here, and your last term is the negative 30 this time. Now what that should tell you is that one of your numbers needs to be positive and one is negative. Your middle term, on the other hand, needs to be, your sum needs to be 7, positive 7. So you're trying to come up with two numbers that multiply together to give you minus 30. If we were listing them all, that could be minus 1 times 30, it could be minus 30 times 1, it could be minus 2 times 15, minus 15 times 2. It might be minus 3 times 10, or minus 10 times 3. So those are your different factor pairs. There's also minus 5 times 6 and minus 6 times 5. But only one of those will make this particular option work for us. So hopefully you would be able to pick out that we would need it to be the negative 3 times positive 10. That does give us negative 30, and if we add negative 3 plus 10, we will get 7. So what should have been in your brackets is x minus 3 and x plus 10. So we've done a common factor, we've looked at two trinomial expressions. This one here is clearly not a trinomial expression, it's only got two terms, and this is where we look at the fact that it must be difference of two squares. So what we'll be looking for here for this one is that you remember that this is going to go into two brackets, and the two brackets almost look identical, except for one will have a plus and one will have a minus. And the other thing is that you should recognise that 36 is a perfect square number. It comes from 6 times 6, and that's what's going to go in your bracket, x plus 6 and x minus 6. And you just learn that for difference of two squares, your brackets will almost be the same, but one will have a plus in it and one will have a minus. So this one here, number 5, clearly doesn't have any common factors. It's not a trinomial, and it is 16 is a square number, 25 is a square number. So this is all about the square terms. So what you're looking for here, two brackets. How can I make the 16? Well, that's about having 4 times 4, so you would have a 4 there and a 4 there. And for the other term in the bracket, how can you make 25y squared? So you need a 5 and a y in each bracket. You then need a plus and a minus. So these two will always multiply together to give you the second term, and the first two inside the bracket multiply together to give you the first term. Sometimes we've also got, so they were both difference of two squares, right? So that was a difference of two squares. This next one at the bottom, you will see actually we're going to use two types of factorising for this one. So you'll see that there is a common factor with this of 3. So we can take 3 outside the bracket and we get 3 bracket x squared minus 9. But then what I need you to recognise is that this here would be your difference of two squares. So you take out the common factor first, then you do difference of two squares, which means that your next line of working, to make you have x squared minus 9, you would need an x plus 3 and an x minus 3, and that would be it factorised fully. So that's a little bit of a reminder about the different types of factorising. Hopefully it's jogged your memory. You should also look up your notes on pages 18 and 19 as well.